Hello everyone, how's it going? My name is Dewi and this is my brother.
Oi!
And today we're here to talk about Ironheart, the new recent Marvel show that has come out about a week ago. So this is your chance now to leave before we get into any spoilers.
3, 2, 1, demon. Okay.
So
obviously this is a continuation from Wakanda Forever, where we obviously last saw
Riri
Williams. Her trying to upgrade her suits at MIT, which doesn't last long because she gets kicked out almost immediately.
Yeah.
But obviously her suit, her first suit in the show is like a bright white. I wasn't a big fan of that suit, to be honest.
No, I don't think that was the one going forward anyway. But the thing is, it was shut down because she was using equipment from like the school, college, whatever, and because it was part of it, they shut it down anyway. But I think this is like the whole show is focused around like her past, what happened to her friend and her dad, and her doing what she can by any means to fund her project to make another suit.
Yes, because obviously, as I said, a lot of this is about her relationship with Natalie.
Yes,
who is
the dead friend,
Yes, and actually, obviously, she's in this show as well as an AI.
Yeah, so they did that on episode 1, didn't they? Where
at the end,
she's trying to create an AI for the suit, so it could, I guess you could say, function better. And I don't know how exactly this process works, but she puts these things on her head, doesn't she? And
reads her brainwaves.
Yeah, what do you think about that? There's a way of creating AI.
I mean, it's interesting to sort of go into the your subconscious and pull something out of there to make an AI. Obviously, really advanced, but she gets that money from HUD, doesn't she?
Yes.
And obviously, that's the main part of the show. For about 3 or 4, about 2 or 3 episodes, it's mainly just her working for HUD for doing side jobs and stuff. Because obviously he recruits her to replace his old technician after he basically fails at doing his job all the time.
Yeah.
And HUD being obviously this small-time crook.
Yeah.
Well, not small-time, but...
But yeah, as you say, she's doing jobs to get the money to fund her project, and she meets other characters like the son of Obadiah Stane.
Yes. It had been rumoured for a while that Obadiah Stane's son was going to be in the show, but I'd almost completely forgotten about it until, they actually said his name. But yeah, weird though how he has a son, since he never ever mentioned him in Iron Man 1.
To be fair, it was literally the one film, and that's 2000 and God knows what now. But it was so many years ago. I don't think they were planning. I don't know, if they were thinking that far ahead. Where we're at now.
I mean, I think they were thinking far ahead, but I don't think this far ahead.
No, so I don't think there was any cause to bring it up until future thing.
Yeah, but obviously he's a pushover until Riri sort of inspires him to stand up for himself. And then you get the scene that you absolutely hated where he cuts the flowers.
Oh, yeah, I made a joke about that. That's why I was smiling there, because I made a bit of a joke at the end where he cuts the flowers, oh my God, I've seen some sick stuff in the world, but that is just the most brutal thing I've ever seen, and you started laughing.
Yeah. So, and he also makes, nuclear weapons and stuff, and Riri makes a joke about being are you planning to take over the world or something? Which is there's no way he's capable of taking over the world.
Not in the state that he's in, no. God knows what it was before it became I guess, a shell of a person. But, as this show goes on, obviously, he gets more and more confidence in who he is because of Riri and what she has done, actually, in one of her jobs.
Yeah, but, so I did Obadiah Stane's son. I do feel he could have been a bit more important in the show. I feel if you took him out of the show, hardly anything would change. Because really the only thing that would change is the final fight, I suppose. And that's basically it.
They've definitely set him up as a future character though, haven't they? Because that last scene that you see him in before the show ends is basically, trying to get rid of the virus thing that's at the back of him, that's integrated into his body to stop him from serving HUD anymore.
Yeah, and then when they defeat him, he says to Riri that they're still not finished with.
I think he's a lot calmer now. Like, I mean, she did free him from his grasp, but I don't know what will happen next time they meet. I don't know what kind of state of mind he's in. I was sort of hoping maybe that would where the end credit scene would have left off. Like,
that's what I would have thought, that the end credit scene would have been showing where he went, because they just kind of left him in that abandoned building.
Yeah.
And from all the explosions that were going on, the cops would have shown up, so would they have just arrested him again, or... I'm not entirely sure. But, yeah, so you had Hood's crew as well. So you had people like Clown, and then that person from... I can't exactly... Madripoor, that was it. Which is where they went in Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yes.
And it's where Wolverine sometimes hangs out. So that was interesting, getting more mentions of Madripoor. But, yeah, and you've got one of the episodes where they try to take over, or not take over, but try and influence the business decisions of, like, this tunnel, I think it was called. Yeah,
I mean... This is why, right, so the whole, like, show is sort of giving you the idea that it's the whole, like, Mephisto is going to be, the bad guy, and, the main ultimate bad guy, the one that Hood is serving. Now, I remember you telling me that Hood in the comics was actually a servant of Dormammu.
Yes, because...
But you told me that, I think it was on episode 5.
Yeah.
And I went through this entire show thinking to myself, the deals, the contracts, the handshaking, the power of the deal that Mephisto has, the power of the devil. Like, I remember back in the day of, like, Ghost Rider and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage and stuff. It's always the power of the deal. And I did think to myself, this is, like, proper Mephisto vibes. And the rumours were Mephisto, to be honest. So I did think, this was going to be him. But then when episode 5 came around, you told me that the Hood was, like, a servant Dormammu. And then Dormammu got a reference... by the person in that show.
Yeah, as being the most likely candidate.
It sort of like switched my opinion then of like, oh right, is that the way they're going with it? Then it's going to be Dormammu. And then as soon as episode 6 came around and it was confirmed at that table, especially when he changed that accent, because obviously you had that past scene where Hood meets him and gets those powers, and all he wants to do is become rich, which lacks vision, to be honest. But even Mephisto kind of says it to him as well. That's what you wanted, isn't it? And you've got it. You've got it. But as soon as he changed that accent, I thought this kind of reminds me of Marvel Midnight Suns, the game, the video game, and I thought to myself, this has got to be Mephisto.
Yeah, well,
it has to be Mephisto.
Obviously, that was the main point of the show, because everything else, obviously, the show was good, but as you mentioned before, they were very slow with the pacing of it. They focus a lot on Riri's sort of personal issues with Natalie coming back as like the AI and how her brother would react to it and all that. And
that's the thing, because you see the mother react to it and she's happy, she's sort of got her back, not got her back, not so much as a replacement, but like a part of her like that's come back, just to fill that empty hole that Riri had. And then of course her brother, well not Riri's brother but Natalie's brother, who's still alive, thought the idea was wrong, and he's kind of
when he finds out,
dismayed like her memory in a way.
Yeah, you know what I do find crazy though? We're like jumping back and forward between topics, but in obviously the Hood's whole purpose, or not purpose, but motivation for wanting to kill Riri was because she, quote unquote, killed his cousin, but. Seeing how far he went to, like, almost becoming a demon, the Hood, it's kind of like, how does her killing your cousin, which I know I get because, like, family and all that, but then morph into such a big sort of snowball effect with Mephisto and all that. It was just crazy how far, like, at that point, are we sure that was even revenge at that point? Because... It just sort of went from being, okay, yeah, revenge, just being like, is it even revenge now, or has he just gone insane? Which, I mean, obviously he has gone insane, because he's being sort of controlled by the Hood,
well, yeah, you saw, like, the tattoos that he was using to trying to cover it up, and obviously, like, the blood veins sort of coming up the side, growing over time, and actually no one actually knows what happens in between closed doors, like, where his friend, or his cousin, whatever, left him alone, because he was in that, like, ice bath for, like, 11 minutes, and you never see what happens. Like, does he, like, let loose this, like, flame or something like that of anger or power that that people not know about. I don't know what happens when he has to like have his own time alone. You never find out.
It's probably just like a test of his like endurance to see how long he can last in certain environments. Because obviously his heists do have pretty big scale, so they would require a lot of training and stuff. Because obviously he's got the hacker woman from Madripoor. He's got the tech girl clown, who I quite liked. To be honest, I thought she was Riri when I first saw her. Because she had a very similar hairstyle. Well, not hairstyle, but she just looked very similar to Riri. So when I first saw her when they broke into that house, I didn't actually think it was Riri until I actually got a better look at her. And then you had those two, like, fighters, those, like, two siblings that were fighters, and they obviously play as, like, the muscle. So, obviously, then you've got to have...
their code names, I know the ones you're on about. Yeah. That actually worked for him, yeah.
So, they've got to obviously have different sort of training measurements, I suppose, and all that. So, I guess, is trying to hold your breath under ice water. So, which was apparently 11 minutes, which is quite impressive. Especially since he didn't even have the hood on. It's
power, isn't it? I mean, it's power of the hood and all that.
Yeah, but he didn't even have the hood on at that point.
No, so but it's probably giving him something to, some power left over from the hood.
I suppose.
But, talking about, like, Obadiah Stane and where he's going to go now, I'm not too sure, but I wish they give more clarification on where that's heading. Because in the end credit scene, I feel like it was kind of wasted when you see, like... what happens is, the hood is sort of... Mephisto's kind of left him now and, like, told him, you're no longer useful to me and stuff like that, pretty much. And so now he wants to try and find other sources of magic.
Yeah, to sort of regain his power. And he goes to the woman at the sort of shop that was the woman that told Riri that it was Dormammu.
What do you think? I think this is kind of a big question. What do you think about the whole... magic integrating with technology?
Well, it's not exactly something that I'm not used to, because that is, Doctor Doom's whole gimmick is integrating magic with technology, but...
With technology?
Yeah.
That's all like saying with Iron Man and Doctor Strange, isn't it? Using both of their type of stuff. So what do you mean by Doctor Strange and using it with technology?
No, Doctor Doom.
Oh, Doctor Doom, I thought you meant Doctor Strange.
No. But to see Riri doing it is obviously quite new. I don't think it's something that they've even done in the comics either. And I did really like her design when she did have the magic and it was red and black. That was a really cool suit design. I really liked that one. It was better than her first one with the white, definitely. And it was also better than her sort of homemade one that she had throughout most of the show before it got destroyed by Obadiah Stane's son.
Yeah. Which one hell of an upgrade that he's got. And
he became like a cyborg sort of thing.
Is there a proper name for him then at that point?
Well, I don't think there is. I think his supervillain name is just his regular name. But the thing is, in the comics, he's meant to be like the evolution of Iron Man, because the whole premise of him was like, what is the next step from a man in a suit of armour? Well, a man made out of that armour, so...
I wonder if there could be potential for him then, Justin Hammer, in the future.
That would be, like, for an Armour Wars sort of thing.
Because there was a rumour as well that Justin Hammer might have been in this at one point, wasn't
really?
There? Well, a long time ago, though, there was a... It was called Armour Wars, though, wasn't it, at the time?
Oh, Armour Wars. Oh, yeah.
That's what I mean. It was a long time ago when the title was still being worked on. It was called Armour Wars or something like that. But then, obviously, when it was cleared up, obviously not. But I'm wondering now if there could be something there later on, as a team-up, who knows?
Yeah, maybe. Considering the fact that they both have some sort of a grudge against, people in Iron Man suits and wanting technology and stuff. So that would make sense. And plus, Justin Hammer's been in prison for, 2 decades now in the MCU. So I think he's done his time.
Well, this is the thing, we haven't got clarification on that, but that's just more of an idea of the future and where they could go with it if they do a team up. But yeah, Mephisto, glad we got finally confirmation on him now.
Yeah.
Liked seeing him. I thought it was really cool. What did you think?
I liked seeing Mephisto. In that scene where Hood is making the deal with him and they're in the pizza place. And obviously at this time we still thought it was Dormammu. And then the way he was just talking and making the deal with him, the handshake, as you mentioned, the art of the deal, and it was just this is meant to be Dormammu, but I don't know. He seems to do a lot of things that Mephisto would do, and then especially like when he changed his accent and stuff, it was like, if this is Dormammu, then they are just taking a lot of inspiration from Mephisto.
Yeah.
But obviously, it was Mephisto in the end, and even when you saw his reflection in like the spoon, and it was the Red Demon, because I remember, because we were eating food during this, I looked down to eat my food, I looked back up, and I just sort of
you have to be really quick
second.
with that, because I actually missed it, and you told me about it at the end of it, and I was like, oh right, I literally missed that, because it was so quick.
Yeah, I just like saw half a second of it, because I looked down to eat my food, I looked back up, and I just saw a slight bit of red for like half a second before then I cut back to him, and I was like,
a smile
what?
with yellow eyes and all red around.
Yeah, because they hadn't said that it was Dormammu yet, so I just looked up and I was like, what? So, not Dormammu, they hadn't said it was Mephisto yet, so I still thought it was Dormammu. So when I saw the red, I was like, oh no, that's definitely
I like
Mephisto.
how we sort of talked about Dormammu, you know, obviously, clearly they're rivals in some regard. Now, I don't know technically who's more powerful. Could be Mephisto, I'm not too sure.
I think they're probably equal in power, to be honest.
Yeah, probably. They clearly bumped heads, so I do wonder, does this somehow, integrate a bit with Doctor Strange 3 when that eventually happens?
It could be.
And why Dormammu's relative thing got him, and then that's why they headed off through the portal. And there could be something there later on. It might not be, but there could be.
But I find it really interesting how of all the projects they chose to introduce Mephisto in, it was Ironheart.
You thought something like Agatha we would have showed up in.
Yeah, because it just feels like a very odd place to put Mephisto in. Ironheart, of all the shows, one that is obviously an Iron Man show that would focus on basically technology.
Yeah, she says at the end he's been watching Riri this whole time, like the unseen, the person, who has all this potential but not being noticed.
Yeah.
Which is interesting considering she made the deal at the end with him
to bring back Natalie.
Yeah.
The real one, not the AI. Because when you have that scene when Natalie comes back and she's confused and Riri's just talking, being like, oh, okay, run diagnostics and all that. And I was like, oh, wait, so she's made a deal with him then? And then just cut back and forward between that scene
the vein of the curse,
yeah,
of the deal. How this is going to affect her long term, I'm not too sure. I guess she could break out of it. Maybe she make the new deal to get out of the old one, but she'd have to do something maybe, pretty bad in order to... I don't know. Yeah,
that's the thing. Obviously, they did not clarify a lot of things in this season. I'm trying to think.
Like what she's had to give up in return, because all he kept saying was, there's nothing you won't notice or won't miss.
Yeah, and same with the HUD. He said it's nothing you won't...
At first I assume it was like your soul, so like when you die, you're basically like with me or serving me for the rest of your life or something like that. I'm not too sure.
So, it's sort of like... As I said, they spent a lot of the season focusing on character development and character growth. They spent a lot of it on personal struggles with Natalie coming back as an AI and Riri's funding and not wanting anyone else to get hurt, like obviously Natalie and her dad or stepdad did during the drive-by sort of shooting. So they spent a lot of time doing character development and not a lot of time fleshing out the story. So what I think is that what they were hoping for was that they wanted to get all the characters sort of, I wouldn't say development, but getting into the whole character drama and all that out of the way in the first season, and then the second season focusing on the story with Mephisto.
Well, we don't know if there's going to be a second season yet, do we?
Well, that's the thing. I hope there would be, because they can't just leave it at the end like that.
No, they won't leave it though, will they? Because at the end, they think of WandaVision, for instance, now. That hasn't got a season 2, but look how that went into Doctor Strange 2. You don't need a second season to continue on the story. It'll just get integrated in. Vision Quest, for instance. It doesn't need Ironheart 2 to continue on the Mephisto story and all that. He's made, as he said in that, he's made deals with God knows how many people, with kings, with popes, and loads of other people, They weren't his only clients, so you're going to see that happen in loads of other different places and how that's going to spiral out of control. Like in Vision Quest now, we could see both Ironheart and Agatha's storyline sort of intersect a bit between what Mephisto's deals have been doing to where Agatha and Wiccan are now going to find his brother and all that business. We just don't know yet how they're going to integrate it. But I don't. If there is an Ironheart season 2, we'll have to see. But I imagine we might see him in other places.
Yeah, I mean,
that point.
I would imagine if they don't make an Ironheart season 2 to continue the story, the next place it could be continued is either Doctor Strange 3, because Mephisto, Young Avengers, because Ironheart is, like a Young Avenger or whatever, or a Midnight Suns movie, but I cannot see...
That can't even happen until after Secret Wars.
Exactly.
And that's the thing, you can't talk about Ironheart or any other show until Doomsday and Secret Wars is done, because a lot is going to happen, Battle World, all this business, and when all the universe and all this kind of stuff, 3 universes combined and stuff, and there's one set universe, that's when they'll have a reset and to properly lay out another story. I guess what they're doing right now is acknowledging characters like, I can't believe I'm saying this, like Venom 3 for Null, Fantastic Four for Galactus, Ironheart for Mephisto, and maybe Doctor Strange, the next one, because something more to do with Dormammu. So more of the big players, because obviously
like
Doomsday is Doom,
gods.
Yeah, basically, the big players that make Thanos look like you thought Thanos was bad. Like all these players are going to be, the big time leagues when they all like.
Yeah, it's like very interesting, and like what Mephisto actually wanted out of his deal with Hood and Riri. I think in order to tie it into the MCU was probably he wanted something like to keep an eye on everything that was happening on Earth with things like incursions and Doctor Doom, but see, we don't really know as of yet. I think we've covered a lot of Mephisto now.
We have Mephisto. I do like the act. I think he does play him very well. I think hopefully you'll be the one going forward as well, to be honest. I really do hope so. I think he has the look for him as well, because like Mephisto, long hair.
Yeah.
And obviously you would see his true form with the Hood in that one episode where he wanted to find out who John's killer was. And he turned around and, you saw this looming dark figure. He must have showed like his true form, maybe.
Yeah, because he showed like a shadow of Ironheart, didn't he?
That's what I think, yeah, because he showed him who his killer was.
Yeah.
But still, I would like to think, he obviously clearly has a true form. I imagine this is like big hulking person, like very tall and red, obviously, with the horns and stuff like that. But I can't wait to see his other deals, maybe that sort of unfold later on, and how Ghost Rider maybe one day might be affected if the deal's already happened or it's going to happen.
Yeah, I did like to see though. The Hood's whole spiral into madness throughout the show, because he goes from being like a
calm person.
Yeah, I guess you could say sort of an anti-hero sort of thing, and then just slowly being consumed by revenge and just spiraling into madness until he basically turns to a demon at the end in the final battle. Yeah. And yeah, I did enjoy that, and I liked the whole sort of aesthetic they had, and the Hood's whole thing with his father trying to take over his whole business by taking over all the smaller companies, I guess. So yeah.
More like a child revenge thing, wasn't it, really, with him? He just wanted to get back at his dad.
Yeah, and like as Obadiah Stane's son said, he's just like basically playing dress up in his father's house. So just trying to pretend to be his dad, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I really enjoyed the show. What would you rate it out of 10?
As you said before, I thought it was a bit slow at the beginning, to be honest. And obviously, especially towards the end, finally got a confirmed answer with Mephisto. I would give it a 7.
Yeah, I think that the ending definitely saved it, because I think if they didn't have the ending the way it was and they just kept going with the slow pace, I would have probably given it like a 6 or something. But I think because of how well the ending did, and just sort of clarified some of the major plot holes, like what the Hood wanted, who made the deal with him, and stuff like that, and even like explaining like who the witches were that helped Ironheart and stuff get the powers, being like magic users from Kamar-Taj or whatever. I think a 7.5 or an 8.
Okay.
I definitely think the ending saved it. And I didn't...
Well, yeah, for me, that's what it was all about, was the more confirmation and actually, the whole deal that I was seeing it getting going.
I didn't hate the slow pace and the going into character drama. I just wish they had a bit more time, like one more episode.
Well, I'd say because there's a lot of things that
story.
they've missed out as well, like where Obadiah Stay's son is now going to be. I think that credit scene could have been different. I just think there's certain areas that need to be answered. I don't know if we will get answered, like the crew, where have they gone?
That's why I think that they were hoping that this would do well, so that the second season can focus mostly on the story and just get all the character drama out the way now. And I also really like the kid that was helping Riri like wheel out the suits and stuff. Yeah, when in the first episode when he was like, I can't survive in this economy, or like something about the economy. He was funny. I liked him.
Yeah, a bit of a...
And like Natalie's brother giving him apple juice instead of like actual strong coffee and stuff, and he was like ridiculous. So yeah, I liked him, and I liked all the characters, but I especially liked him, Mephisto, and the Hood.
Yes,
and Riri. But
I can't think of anything else to add. Can you?
No, I don't think so.
In that case, please let us know what you think of the show, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can if you leave it down in the comments. That is going to be it from me, Dewi, and my brother.
Oh,
and we will catch you all in the next video. Bye-bye.
Ta-da!